In Italy, time can be measured in centuries, over generations, or in tenths of a second. Motorcycles are a national passion. One brand, MV Agusta, has an illustrious past. But it's facing financial ruin until one man and his son decide to save it.
My father can be described as someone completely crazy, in a good way. He's more creative and I'm more on numbers.
Together, they decide to build a new, more affordable MV Agusta sport bike. A motorcycle designed for maximum speed and handling performance on the street or on a racetrack. But can they do it? Or is it already too late? Varese, Italy, home to the patriarch of a local family and his son, Claudio and Giovanni Castiglioni. Their company, MV Agusta, is at a crossroads. Because sometimes Claudio's passion for what he calls motorcycle art blinds him to reality.
Claudio tried to do things without thinking will be profitable or not.
When the Castiglionis buy MV Agusta, the first sport bike Claudio builds is the F4, with a large four-cylinder engine. It's exotic, expensive, and clearly Italian.
We're going to the experimental site. I don't have the key. It's our top range. It's the best of the best.
It sells for twice as much as the average motorcycle, and more than some cars.
Over 200 horsepower, 201 exactly. 0.2. It's fully equipped with the latest technology.
The market for very expensive motorcycles is small. A bad world economy only makes it worse.
I think it's one of the worst moments that motorcycle industry saw in the last year. So if you have still new models, a new market to challenge is the key to surviving.
So father and son decide to create a less expensive three-cylinder bike. They simply call it the F3. Claudio is betting it all on the F3, a bike designed to match competitors' prices, but still carry the MV Agusta mystique.
I pushed a lot with this project. We're still pushing. We still haven't delivered the first bike, so we're still pushing.
We sell only 5,000 bikes is not enough. We need to go at least above 10,000 bikes.
The F3 is an Italian motorcycle that isn't designed in Italy. It's designed in the Republic of San Marino, a tiny enclave of 61 square kilometers that's completely surrounded by Italy.
My name's Adrian Morton and I'm a senior designer for MV Agusta. We're here at the Castiglioni Research Centre in San Marino. This is where Everything, apart from the engine on the MV Agusta product, is developed. From the frame, the styling, everything that isn't the engine is developed in these four walls.
Adrian is a great designer. He has quite a difficult character because you have to be careful when you say, maybe I don't like this so much, but look what he did.
Claudio is less concerned with feelings at the design studio. He lets everyone know what he thinks and what he wants.
I generally get the impression that he's waiting to 7:30 in the morning so he can call me, because sometimes he really genuinely has called me really like before getting into work to tell me, you know, oh, I'm not too sure about this, I'm not too sure about that.
How to develop the body, how the shape of the bike, that it's the focus of Claudio, and that it's what Claudio is doing.
He has incredible views, visions of the future.
It takes several years to finalize the F3's body, frame, and suspension.
This is maybe 4 years ago. It's an idea of, we had the engine and we say, let's see how we can fit it in a bike. This bike was done by my father, who loved to be a perfectionist.
Paolo Castiglione, when he's paid visits here, to see maybe some doubt has been left in his mind about a certain aspect of the bike. You know, I can name hundreds of aspects that perhaps weren't to his taste initially.
My father used to always ask advices from everyone, but then he'd do his own way.
Well, this is our model making shop.
Designing the overall shape of the F3 follows designing the individual pieces of the bike.
Okay, this is Giancarlo, who's one of our model makers. He's doing some final surface finishing to a fuel tank. I think it's important that this hands-on kind of aspect remains, because it really does make the difference how you perceive the final component, if you like. Fundamentally, an MV Agusta should be sexy, and I think this fuel tank, when it's painted, looks sexy, dare I say.
They follow the same process from a basic model to a handmade finished piece for every part of the bike, including the swing arm, which connects the frame to the rear wheel.
And this, in a way, kind of sums up our design process, starting from a design model. And from this styling model, this is a component that's been handmade in metal, that was actually applied to a test bike. The technical layout of the bike, the frame, the swing arm, and the wheels, they are the first components that need to be constructed before we can move on with the styling.
Then they scan every part into computers.
Vediamo il progetto del...
Here we can see the design of the rear swing arm that we saw in the workshop.
They test in the lab, but the best tests are on the racetrack. With some 60 sensors attached to critical parts of the bike.
This third model is our cast model that basically allows us to evaluate the direction of the final sign-off component. This is actually rigged up with strain gauges.
Between all of these steps, we had a structural calculation.
Surprisingly, going flat out on a racetrack isn't the most stressful time for the bike's structure.
The most severe condition, as strange as it seems, is not when you ride at high speed. The most severe forces that act on the swing arm and frame is when you hit a big bump on the road at low speeds.
At MV, form not only follows function, but beauty.
The characteristics of the length and the rigidity of the bike will have an impact on the dynamics of the vehicle. But obviously it has to look great as well. So the styling is fundamental to something on an MV, like the swing arm. You know, swing arm on an MV Agusta should be something really quite special.
Computers fill the second floor of the building. Here, 12 people spend a full year converting the F3 into digital files. They begin with individual parts, like the fuel tank, then move on to the entire motorcycle.
Nel caso di F3, la moto è estremamente...
The F3 model is a real compact bike. For this reason, we have a real small dimension of the fuel tank. And to achieve some capacity, we had to build an extension of the fuel tank on the rear part.
The F3 is so compact, they need to use the area under the seat as part of the fuel tank.
This is the saddle for the people. Inside we have a fuel tank.
It's time for science to meet art. Designing the F3 is a strange combination of high-tech software and classic sculptor's tools used to create a full-size model of the bike out of clay.
How it starts off life, if you like. I mean, it's just like a brick, if you like, this solid material.
And then, step by step, the bike comes out.
We apply this clay material on the structure, and that basically is, forms a starting point. The clay is about the styling, but it has to fit around all these fixed points. All these things have to be considered when you're actually designing the bike. From day one on the F3, we started off with the technical components. It forms a skeleton of the bike. It's like creating a person. You don't start with the skin, you do start with the bones, if you like. The cool thing about having a clay model is you can actually sit on it physically and you can, as a designer, get a feel for what the bike's going to be like. The best thing about this kind of, actually riding a bike, you can actually check all your positions. And I love motorcycles. I'm not just a designer. First I loved motorcycles, then I became a designer.
Claudio and the F3 are stars of the 2010 Milan Motorcycle Show. The F3 is voted the most beautiful bike there. So far, the Castiglione father and son plan is working.
We have clients that are 18 years old with the new F3. A few years back, these kids, they were kids, they didn't even know what was MV because MV was closed for 30 years.
But fate is about to turn the MV world upside down. The MV Agusta F3 is Claudio Castiglione's latest masterpiece. But as destiny would have it, he never gets to ride it. In August 2011, just weeks before the bike is scheduled to go into production, Claudio Castiglione dies.
You think about, oh God, what I do now?
Until the very end, his dream consumes him.
The last conversation, and he was not far from his death, maybe one day before. So we talked about bike a long time, till the end. I always said, for me it's impossible to think of a life without my father.
But Giovanni must face reality. Ready or not, he is suddenly the new patriarch at MV Agusta.
I realized in this moment that if you stop, you think about, oh God, what I do now, the world moves, and you stay still, and then you fail. You have to move on.
He's learning. What his father did wasn't easy.
It's very difficult. I thought it was much easier.
Claudio was crazy for these kind of things and was, I would say, more an artist than an engineer, but he was a great artist with a great vision.
The most beautiful bikes the Italian bike industry has created, as most of them been done under Claudio Castiglione. So to be kind of the last in the line of this succession of beautiful bikes was a challenge for a designer. You know, you've got to have a bit of imagination to turn the square block of clay into something that actually feels right in terms of a riding experience, because, you know, it could be just a square box, really. I mean, it doesn't have to be this refined and have all these nice shapes, but it really is that what makes the difference. It has to look great, but it has to be great to sit on as well.
Working to get just the right look, just the right feel. Now Giovanni must not only finish what his father started, he's got to make it sell.
This legacy between Mr. Castiglione, Mr. Claudio, and Giovanni, I think it's unique.
To many at MV Agusta, the company is one big family. Claudio's death hits hard. They quickly rally around Giovanni. Family is honored at MV Agusta.
We were used to see him like a child, and now he represents the continuity of the MV Agusta. So it's a big change. But for sure, he has the same passion like his father.
Passion that seems uniquely tied to this part of Italy.
In this part of the world, there were born some people that were like my father, like Enzo Ferrari, like Lamborghini, that were able to do something different. Were able to put passion into something that is mechanic. So when you look at a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or an MV, and you see that there is a soul. I think if you don't have passion in motorcycle, you do a company without a soul. I don't know if I can explain.
Claudio's old friend, Massimo Bordi, is in his 60s. Giovanni is now his boss and half his age.
Between me and Giovanni, there is no jealousy. Our target is to make this company a strong company, to be successful, mostly in the honor of Claudio.
I'm sorry that my father cannot see how much success this bike will have. I think it's a good tribute to my father.
One of the first tests Giovanni faces alone is a dealers' meeting at the factory. Dealers who will voice their own opinions if the new bike captures the passion and soul of an MV.
This is a classical dealer meeting when we present the new model year.
Giovanni looks nervous. This is his first dealer meeting without Claudio by his side.
If you are the one that is doing the bike with your team, you fall in love with the bike. But then the actual proof is when you show the bike to somebody else.
The proof can be heard.
We started the F3 a few years ago. It's a very difficult project because it's a brand new bike, so a brand new frame, brand new engine, start of production, a new assembly line, many things that takes place to do a completely new product.
The dealer show bike is the final F3, except for one minor glitch. Its engine doesn't work. The engine is the key to the entire F3 project. The work of a man named Marco Castinelli.
Marco Castinelli is the head of our R&D. For me, is the professor.
One of the major issues in such a design is cost. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. It's a nice thing, but it cannot go into production.
The F3 will not be the first three-cylinder MV Agusta engine. In the 1960s and 70s, Italian racer Giacomo Agostini wins 14 world championships riding MV Agusta three-cylinder race bikes.
Historically, the brand of MV Agusta is very linked to the three-cylinder engine layout because all the victories from Agostini in the past, that was really fantastic.
MV stops building the racing three-cylinder engine in 1974. Ironically, the factory still has the original plans, but few people working on the new F3 sports bike know anything about three-cylinder engines.
Of course, we had a look at the old drawings. Technology had completely changed. Of course, those engines were specially made for racing. We are talking about a production engine.
This is the new MV Agusta. So all the young guys that are here, they didn't know anything about three cylinders at all.
Andrea Goghi is head of engine research and development. His job is to take the engine design and actually build the motor.
So let me introduce in the MV Agusta engine department, where first the four-cylinder engine was born, and now is the time of the F3, the three-cylinder engine to follow. This is really the place where we try to understand if things work, how they work, how we can improve, how we can get better. We can have a look. So now in this moment we are really in the heart of the development area. This is the dyno room where we mainly developed the engine. Now there are many dynos dedicated to the three-cylinder, but this one especially was the one where we made all the performance and the reliability tests.
It takes months to tweak and improve the engine design.
There was some time in which we were stuck at a certain amount of power. We could not increase, and we tested many things, but we never increased the power. At a certain point, we touched the right note, the right thing, and everything was fine. Now the engine which is running is one of the first engines made with production parts, and we are checking that the general performance of the engine is exactly the same like the prototypes.
During development, Andrea and his staff find ways to increase the F3 engine's performance by 20 horsepower.
The most exciting moment is when you start things and maybe power is low, and then you do some things and you grow, you grow, you grow, you grow, and that's really probably the best for an engine engineer.
That would have made Claudio Castiglione happy. Very happy.
More horsepower. He wanted always more.
With the prototype engine built and tested, it's finally time to put the normal F3 engines into production. Like the prototypes, the new F3 production engines are all built by hand, mixing old school with high tech. A simple brush to oil parts. a space-age digital wrench to make certain every bolt is tightened to perfect specifications. But even with a space-age tool, when you put a new engine into production, traditional methods are important, like referring to the engine building manual to make sure you get it right.
So it's the first production engine of the F3 build, which will be tested for the first time today as a production engine. It's like the born of a new baby.
The new engine lives up to expectations. After years of development, it's time to build some bikes. The MV factory stands next to Lake Varese. The building's more than 30 years old. But inside, they're getting ready to build one of the most modern motorcycles in the world.
The first F3 will be born in this factory.
We are in one department of MV production, where is assembled the new bike, F3. The engine come in line already testing.
Building the F3 begins with bolting parts to the engine. But there's a problem. The new F3 engine is so compact, it doesn't fit the engine stands on the assembly line. Hours later, a simple solution. They temporarily borrow some stands from the Engine Research and Development Department. Time to mount the frame to the engine. That frame is classically Italian. It's a critical structural piece. Andrea Giovanelli runs a small plant about 10 kilometers south of the MV factory in Varese, Italy.
It is the factory where the frames of MV Agusta are built.
Frames built by cutting and welding steel pipes. It's called a trellis frame. Its design combines strength and beauty.
This is a tube of high-strength steel that will be bented. They come here, cut in line in the right dimensions, and by means of this machine, we will bend in the right shape for the frame of the motorbike.
Clamps hold the tubes together.
So here we are in the stations where we weld our frames.
Sub-assemblies fit into one last big jig.
In this station, we put together all the sub-assemblies that you see here, and after that, the frame has its shape and can go to the next step with this finishing welding. Before our final station, where we finish our frames, we perform sandblasting to clean them perfectly.
The sandblasting machine looks menacing. With the doors closed, sand swirls around at incredible speeds. It's like being caught in the worst desert dust devil you could imagine. Then, one final check.
This is an F3 brand new frame, and we measure it with this special machine.
For MV, precision means performance.
So it's a great frame. I am very optimistic about not only the performance in the street, but the performance in the racetrack.
Finished frames will carry the fuel tank and body parts of the new bike. The tank is one of the hardest parts to design for the F3.
Actually, it was one of the last parts of the bike that was modelled because it really took ages to get such simple surfaces and simple shapes to a final conclusion. It really was one of the most difficult components to develop in terms of styling. Taking this as a final sign-off component, we can give the information to a supplier that makes the final plastic fuel tank.
The fuel tanks are made in a factory about 50 kilometers southeast of the MV factory. Silvio Gastaldi is in charge of making sure every F3 fuel tank and fairing, or body panel, is perfect.
What we produce for MV Agusta, the raw material delivered in plastic bags. The raw material itself is a kind of granulate. It's black plastic in this case. For one fairing, probably we need 10,000 or 20,000 of these small bubbles or granulates of raw material.
The plastic granules are mixed with water and then pushed through a series of tubes to a drying machine.
After the drying of this raw material, we transport the raw material directly through these tubes to the injection machine.
The raw plastic is heated, turning it into a kind of plastic goo, which is forced into a powerful injection molding machine.
We have then the liquid plastic, and with one shot it goes into the tool, into the mold, to give the final form.
The molding machine squeezes each part with 2,700 tons of pressure. In little more than a minute, the plastic is squeezed into a finished part.
So this is what we get out of the mold. It is solid. It needs normally around about 30, 40 seconds to cool down the liquid plastic to a solid plastic.
Now, fuel tanks and body parts move to the painting line.
So completely round in the line is about 2.5 hours due to cleaning, painting times and drying of the paint in the oven.
The final step is quality control.
This is a special measurement device only for colors.
That device is a color spectrum meter. It checks that every painted piece matches exactly.
To be sure that we paint the part in the correct color, because all these white parts from one motorcycle must match.
If all the colors match, the fuel tanks and fairings are packaged and sent to the MV Agusta factory. The F3 is nearly ready for final production.
We are setting up the production line to produce the F3. Everyone calls me by name, not Mr., but by name.
We saw that the father and the son were growing in the passion. So that is a kind of guarantee for the future for us.
The F3 is another part of the future for MV.
New bike is the best new bike. Total more or less 10 hours to assemble one bike.
It's very interesting to see that in the morning you see that the bike is only a lot of pieces and at the end of the day there is a complete bike that is working. It's amazing.
I just want the production to be on the right timing, because production gives you sales your revenues, and it's the life of the company.
This morning, the MV Agusta factory is eerily quiet. They're ready to build the new F3. But final testing is running behind schedule.
We had the plan to go in September. We will go at the end of November, but it's okay. I mean, 2 months for a new project is nothing.
Giovanni tries to appear patient. But each week that goes by without full F3 production means no F3 sales. And that could mean the end of MV Agusta. The F3's been in development for years. They're almost there. But the Castiglione family dream and the future of MV Agusta hangs in the balance of one last test.
Tomorrow we are taking F3 to the racetrack to search the final solution before the production of the bike starts.
They strap what amounts to a strange-looking computer hard drive to the back of an F3. It records sensor data from every major system on the bike.
We put the data logger on the bike so we can control what's happened, and after that we can analyze the data.
The race is on to test the bike on the track.
There are not yet software that can help you to tune exactly the bike. At the end, you need, the good rider to go in the racetrack. For F3, it's crucial.
They ride and ride and ride some more. Riders and engineers debrief each other Italian style. Lots of hand gestures. Lots of words. And lots of passion. Everything the rider does and every way the bike reacts is recorded.
So when the bike arrives, we plug in the laptop to the bike. We switch on and we download the data. When we finish to download the data, we can analyze what we need. For example, the gas position, the RPM, all the engine control parameters.
They analyze between 20 and 30 variables simultaneously. Every test confirms the F3 is ready for mass production. Finally, the family dream is about to come true.
Today is a very special day for MV. New baby born F3 is coming down on the line, the first bike. It's been 5 years of research, investment, engine, body and frame, and it's really a great day. So my legacy will be completing the product range to give a company a strong future, become bigger, maybe 2-3 times what we are now.
The new patriarch of Italian motorcycles looks around the factory and thinks about the future.
I have 2 kids, 1 girl and 1 boy. I think the girl, she likes shopping more than doing motorcycle. But the boy, the first word he said is broom broom. So I think it's quite positive.